Thanks, Tim. Hi, I've got a bone to pick with Adam because I made a pact when we were outside with both the speaker that was coming before me and the speaker that's coming after me. I said to the speaker coming before me, can you trip over or something? Because when I do it in my heels, it'll make it better. The pact I've made with you, Simon, though, still stands. So what I'm going to give to you is the problems, and Simon's going to give to you the solutions. So in terms of what I'm going to talk about today, in terms of do androids dream of white electric sheep, the sci-fi geeks amongst you will know where I got that from. Anybody? It is the original title, without the word white, of the Blade Runner book by Philip Dick. And the reason I chose this title was when I was growing up in this country, one of the things I found, and I still find now, is I'm usually a minority in the groups that I talk to. You can imagine I'm at the Institute of Directors, where I'm talking to boards of FTSE companies, talking to boards of top firms, etc. I was also a lawyer in the city. So you can imagine the types of people I'm talking to. I get a look from them. What's this young Indian whippersnapper going to teach us? And I can see it in their faces. The worst I've ever got is, can you make us a cup of tea, love? And growing up with that, I always thought, actually, technology is going to be the answer to this, because technology is blind. Technology won't see my color. Technology won't see my height. Technology won't see how I look. So I always grew up believing that technology was going to be the solution. It's why I've ended up in a technology firm. So where's Marie? Woohoo! So I'm with a technology company where I really did think that actually this is brilliant. We've got people here that haven't judged me at all based on how I look, what I am. All they've done is said, actually, there's something in you, there's some skills there that we know we lack. And we need you to come in and do that. So I grew up thinking, great, technology's the solution to a lot of these problems that we have. However, the 80s gave me my first shock. I grew up, and I was a bit typical in that all my family are doctors. So for those of you that know the medical profession in the 80s, I don't know how many of you knew what happened at St. George's School. It was my first shock about how technology can not only be racist and sexist, but it can actually decide if you give away that you're working class, we're not going to interview you. And the reason they did that was they'd actually produced some IT that was going to replace human beings, because human beings, it was inefficient, we had too many people doing it, so they'd actually created a program that was supposed to replicate the application interview process and taking out who we need to interview. What they found, and this happened between 1982 to 1986, what they found, two of the professors actually at St. George's, found that what was happening was if you were white, if you were white, male, you got extra points. If you were female Caucasian, you got slightly less points. If you were non-white male, even less. And if you were unfortunate enough to be non-white and female, you got the least number of points. Now, it really shocked me. I was like, how could that happen? Why did it happen? It was not that the program was racist, but the program had been built to learn from what humans had done before. And what was really funny about St. George's was actually it had more Asians than any other medical school at that time. The reason was they were all getting through on clearing because their results were better than those that had actually been offered places. So that was my first shock. But recently as well, I noticed more and more things. So the 3 or 4 examples I wanted to give you was translation and language. It's one of the things we have to be careful about. But in English, most pronouns, it's he, she, or it. Other languages, I don't know how many of you use Google Translate? Anyone use Google Translate? Any Turkish speakers here, by the way? Oh, good, then I can say whatever I want. Yeah, you'll believe me. So, in Turkish, the pronoun is o. And o doesn't have a gender, it's neutral. So if I said, O is a doctor, guess how Google translates it? If I say O is a nurse, guess how it translates it? O is hardworking. O is lazy. She is... Now, to be fair to Google, they have changed this now and recognise that they've got it. So they now actually, especially if there's any Google workers in here, I stress straight away that they have changed this now to make it neutral. And it's because of a guy called Adam Kalai who has actually looked at lots of different words and put them above the line if they're neutral or if they're dangerous words that people could connotate something even though it's not there. So there's been work done on that. Again, it's not because Google's racist, or that because it's sexist or anything like that. It was the algorithms that were programmed into it, learnt from the language we use every day. French language, until recently, they refused to change the gender of le président. Because what you have to, any French speakers here? What do you say for female presidents? You say Madame le Président, which means female, masculine president. So you've covered everything, which is great. But they refused to change it. We have that in English as well, because when I started, do we call you a chair? Do we call you a chairperson? Or do we call you a chairman, Janhavi? It's really difficult to know. And I was like, well, once you've seen me, I hope you know what to call me at least. So language was the second thing that I noticed in computers is a problem. Third one, even worse in my view, face recognition. Google, and apologies to Google that I keep picking them, but I suppose it's the one that's most used and analysed. Google had created an algorithm to try and recognise your face and put you into a category, human, animal. Shockingly, somebody found an Afro-Caribbean's face in the gorilla category. Now, you can imagine if you were that person, how you would feel. Google says it was an absolute accident. You know, we had looked at every single face when we did this. We don't know how it happened. Apple, just to be completely fair to all the fangam companies, Apple did a similar problem. In the Chinese market, 2 people were able to open the same phone because they couldn't recognize 2 different Chinese people. Again, they say they have corrected this. But again, we can see, I don't think it's Apple, I don't think it's Google that's the problem. It's the algorithms behind it that are programmed by human beings. The other thing, just since I did follow an American, I have to stick one to them at least sometimes, is if you type in the word idiot in Google, does anybody know what turns up? Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Now, when they were scrutinized at those committees, I'm sure it wasn't intentional from Google. Why has it happened? Because people have sat there clicking on the word idiot, and when the word idiot comes up, they click on Donald Trump's face. Now, it could be a bot that's been programmed to do that from the Democrats. It could be anybody. But it's learned behavior. Why have I said all these things to you? Because, go back to what I started with. I thought computers were going to be the solution. I thought technology was going to move all of this away. Actually, it's done something much worse. It's accentuated our biases. If anything, it's reinforced our biases. And social media has created the danger that we're in today. Because what it does, every time you click on something, whether it's a comment, whether it's someone's opinion, what it does is categorize you immediately into a category. Once you're in that category, we're only going to show you programs from that category or thoughts from that category. What have they done? Reinforced all your biases. So, with all of that in mind, I thought, let's have a little bit of fun. Is he still in the audience? Is Matthew still in the audience? I am slightly scared because this is not really scientific. And I know there's loads of psychologists and real scientists in the audience. Oh no, oh no. Okay, this is GCSE level science, okay? Not degree level science, but hopefully it works. I've never done it with this many people, and certainly not people that are already cognizant of their cognitive biases, so let's see if it works or not. So what I'm going to ask you to do for this is just simply this whole side of the audience, right to the top. So if you're up to that bar, you are all going to be Group A. This side, you're all going to be Group B. Okay? So please be honest. That's the one thing I talk about, integrity and honesty. So can Group B all close their eyes? Well, I'll tell you when. You don't have to do it yet. Group A, I'm going to ask you 2 questions. Okay? I want you to write down the answer of your 2 questions so you can't cheat and change it. Okay, and again, be honest, okay? Oh, and I should have said, this is the technology-free zone. This is the humanity zone, okay? Simon can take the technology, so please don't use your iPhones or anything like that. Okay, Group B, please close your eyes. And keep them closed until I tell you, okay? Group A, we have to do it, don't we? Group A. Yes or no? Just write it down quickly. Quickly. Okay. Question 2. Just keep your eyes closed, Group B. Second question. Quickly. Okay? All right. Group B, you can open your eyes, and Group A, you can keep your eyes open, but please don't change your answers. Please don't say anything now. Okay? We haven't talked about this enough, I figured, so I thought I had to ask the Europe question. It's only been 3 years after all, but don't be scared, it's not the B word. Write your answer down quickly. Okay. And second question. Quickly. No, it's either random number generation or we've got some EU expert in the room, I'm sure. Okay? Now, let me ask you, Group B, since you just had that question, how many of you answered yes to the first question? Oh, about 50% of you, okay? And in terms of the population then, those that wrote under that, how many of you said below 500 million? Okay, very small number. Below 600 million? So keep your hands up if you're at 700 million. Okay. So actually the majority, the average on this side probably was going to be higher than 875 million. Group A, just so that you know what they got, was this question. How many of you said yes to the first question? Okay, and how many of you put above 800 million? There you go. What have I just shown you here? Whatever happened, all of you were anchored by that first figure that I'd given you. Yeah? So what can I do? I can manipulate your thoughts. I can make you try and go towards what I wanted you to believe. 350 million on the bus, or 100 million Turkish coming into our country. I can do what I want when I want to manipulate your thoughts on this by anchoring. And you're all educated. This is how, unfortunately, decisions are made. So that's one of the problems. What we can do is anchor people's thoughts. Now, all of you can keep your eyes open for this one. So this is the question I'd given to Group A, B even. Now, I'm going to do another one. As HR people, you're all looking for great talent out there, aren't you? And anytime you meet someone, it's going to be great. We can take those coincidental opportunities when we meet some great people and make sure that if we need them, we'll take it. So I'm going to show you 5 faces and 5 names. Okay? No taking pictures, nothing like that, okay? So first, you meet this great guy called Shubhankar Mukhopadhyay, who is a database specialist. Second of all, you meet a great guy called Junior Fisher, who works for Microsoft. Third, you meet a lovely lady called Yulita Ramanasukute, who's a CTO. 4, you meet this lovely guy called John Spencer, who's a software developer. And finally, you meet this lovely lady called Suyin Khan, who's a computer network architect. Okay? Now, be honest again, how many of you remember who was the senior C-suite person in that audience? You remember both the name and the face. We've still got a few. Sorry, say that, I can't hear because I'm... Sunita. Yolita was the Chief Technology Officer. Very good. But would you have remembered her surname? Second one, a person who works for one of the biggest technology companies. Junior Fisher, you remembered that one. Third one, a software developer. Was it? Yeah, most of you have remembered that one, John Spencer. Someone with the knowledge of database systems. Top left, that's as much as we're getting. I knew it, Indian names are the worst. And a computer network architect. Suyin Khan. What have I said to you straight away? And what have I shown you just with that 5-minute thing? That chances are, in today's world, well, impressions, but also, and I know this because nobody can pronounce my name, Janhavi Dadarkar, and nobody remembers it afterwards. Even worse, even after they've met me, I still get, "Dear Mr. Dadarkar." That worries me when they've met me and said that. Having said that, but the other scary thing about this is there was a time on the London FTSE top index, you were more likely to be on the board if you were called John than if you're a woman. So I did go around calling myself Janhavi to see if I could get myself a position for a while. But what does that tell us? Again, we think we're better than computers. It's us that's programmed it. Okay. Finally, I'm going to do, this one's going to be a random number. Normally I do it physically, but you might think I'm a magician rather than a speaker. Therefore, what I've done is actually pre-recorded this, but I've used a program that randomly picks out cards. So what I'm going to ask you to do, first of all, how many of you would be willing to take a bet with me that the first card I pull out will be black? Not yet. Okay, well, forget that first bet. What I'm going to do is pull out 5 cards. Okay? Just out of interest, how many of you think you would have taken the bet? How many of you... Oh, it's always interesting to see who are the gamblers in the room. It's not, well, it's not. But, okay, so what I'm going to do is roll it 5 times. Okay? And once I've rolled it 5 times, what I want... I'll pause it. And then I want to know how many of you will take the bet. The same bet, same odds, everything. Okay? So first card we pulled out was a red. And if we do the next 4 cards that we pull out. This is why I prefer humanity to technology. There we go. Okay, first one, well, second one's a black. Third one's a black. Fourth one's a black. 5th one is a black. Can you pause it? How many of you are willing to take the bet that the next one is a black? Oh, less of you, though, now. Less of you now. Do you want to do it? What's the last one? It's random. Look at it, random. What have I just shown you here? That less people are willing to gamble on the 6th one than on the first one. Any mathematician in the room and any statistician will tell you the odds have not changed. What have you all done? You've based your last decision based on historical facts, even though they're not relevant to the future on this one. The amount of emphasis we put on historical, by the way, it's why we girls carry on dating, even though our past experience is bad. So, finally, last question. Any Olympiads apart from our table tennis player here? No Olympiads? Quickly, write down a range that you are 90% confident is the answer to this question. A range, so... Without talking, just write down a range. Okay, ready? How many of you put between 0 to 10? Okay, now keep your hands up, those. Who put 0 to 50? Okay, we're getting more. 0 to 100. Keep your hands up, everybody that's already put their hands up. Okay, 0 to 100, okay? 0 to 150. Keep your hands up if you got it, okay? 0 to 200. Okay, I think I've pretty much got about 75% of the audience, if not 90% of the audience there. How many of you put something like 1 to 1,000? Very few there. What have I just demonstrated? The actual answer is 156. Okay, it's not about the right or wrong answer. What is this about? When I asked you to guess something that you had no idea about, how many of you were still confident in your answer even though you knew nothing about it? This is what we call the overconfidence bias. And unfortunately, our leadership has a lot of this. Yeah? You ask them to guess something, they'll guess it. The fact that they know nothing about it means nothing. And unfortunately, again, sorry, gents, you're more likely to express this one than the women. Although this audience sort of couldn't quite judge. Why do I say all of this then? And what have we learnt from this? It is flashing 0, so that was the range anyway. And by the way, if you want to know the population of Europe, it is just 30,000 shy of 743 million. As of the 18th of March. Apparently we've got new generations coming already, so it may have changed. But just to give you that sum. What have we learnt from this then? Technology can only perform if the algorithms we do are not based on our own biases. And we can only expect of that what we are programming into it. The fact that we know about it should help. But what would and it's my plea actually, I do this a lot with the IOD and talking to leaders, what we need is change in mindsets. We've talked, this isn't about tick boxing compliance or anything like that. What this is about is a genuine understanding and mindset of what's going wrong. I'm not going to talk about conscious and unconscious bias. To me, actually, all these labels are unhelpful often. Bias exists. What we need to understand is why. How did it form, and what do we do with it when we know it exists? It's part of humanity to have biases. It will happen, but what do we do with it to create the best? And the only way we change that, and something that helped me growing up, was a concept of what we call dharmic governance. People have to understand their duties. And I think Hashi almost sort of talked, or somebody before talked about it, understanding your responsibility. Everybody loves to talk about their rights. But if the leaders take care of their duties, everybody's rights will be taken care of. Let's hope that humanity can be better at this. And if we start looking after our own responsibilities, maybe technology will be an enabler. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Absolutely amazing.